So today we're gonna jump back in time, 1898. It has to do with this and that. What's up guys, Dan here, Coalcracker, 1898. That is a long time ago for sure. But back then, people were still in the woods. They were still having a really good time in the woods. They were still utilizing a lot of these bushcraft tricks and tips and hacks. And they were actually developing, I'm sure, a lot of these over the years. So one resource that has to do with today's project, okay, is this. Camping in Woodcraft by Horace Kephart. If you've never seen this book, I highly recommend it. It is a great addition to your outdoor library. Lots of good, useful information here. And the reason I'm showing this specific one is a few years back, I received this in the mail, and it's actually from Horace Kephart's great grandchildren. Trying to open up the page here and talk all at the same time. The great-granddaughter of Horace Kephart, and wrote a little note here, and then she also included a little bit longer note right here. So very cool, very sentimental to me overall. So he started writing this book she has here in 1898. That's where we're getting that date from. And then it ended up being published in 1916. So a lot of work went into this over the years, and a lot of good ideas here. And one of those ideas was taking your axe or some of your tools and making it a measuring device. So I'm going to show you today in the shop here how you can do that, and then we're going to talk about some alternatives. Let's first talk about why measuring is important in bushcraft and survival in the outdoors. First of all, having some type of measuring device is going to be important for the fact that it allows you in more advanced type settings to be able to measure furniture and different projects, because if you've ever done any of that stuff, knowing how long legs need to be, how far holes need to be apart, and things like that are very important. So that is where it really comes into play as far as my realm of use. It also is important when it comes to just maybe even bucking up firewood. So if we take a saw and we're going to be cutting firewood for the day, if you are using a wood stove, knowing how long maximum length you can cut is going to be important. And then mapping is a big one. So if you're using a map or you're doing self-mapping, measurement becomes very, very important. Now it's going to be a little bit silly if you carry one of these around, just because there's other ways to do it rather than carrying a full tape measure around with you. And that's what we're going to talk about today. One of those methods that's very simple is just take a piece of paracord or a piece of rope and then just tie on knots. Okay, so these knots are at like 1-inch increments, and then you can use this as your measuring device, roll it up, put it in your repair kit, and you will be good to go. But what Horace Kephart talks about in his book is marking your tools just like this. So if you look up close, you can see all these little markings here. They are 1-inch increments. So that gives you a measuring device that you always have along with you, because we generally always carry our axe. And if we're doing those hardcore woodworking projects, the axe is also going to be a staple in them, and then your measuring tool is right there. So all that we're going to do for this is we're going to take our axe, start at the bottom of the axe itself, and we are just going to use a pencil and a ruler at home, and we are going to mark 1-inch increments all the way up the axe. So for today's demo, I just have a bucksaw centerpiece right here that I'm going to use. Most of my axes that I want this measuring device on, they already have it. So we don't have any axes right at the moment that Coalcracker needs to do, but we can definitely put this on something like the center portion of a bucksaw. We can use it on our axe, even a walking stick, any of this stuff, it'll work just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a marker, and I already started here. I'm coming down, I'm just making 1-inch increments down the length of this thing. So I made my markings. Now what are we going to do next? So we need to actually burn those in. So how do we put the burn marks in there? So the easiest thing that I've found by using one of these bad boys, just a old file that you have laying around the house, or if you don't have one laying around, just go to like Harbor Freight or somewhere that you can buy cheap tools and grab yourself one. Now if you pre-mark this at home and you're out at camp and you take your file, you can just heat this up in a campfire and bring it out and mark it that way. But in our case, we don't have a campfire available, so we're going to use a trusty old torch. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna use the edge of that metal to just touch those 1-inch marks that we set up. So let's get this in the vise and we'll get a couple of these marked and show you what it looks like. All right, second round of heating. Just touch those edges. Burn it in really nice now. Just work our way down. And then as it cools, we can just heat it back up. All finished up. Super simple, easy process. Just remember, after you do this, add some boiled linseed oil to your wood because that is a great protectant for this, and when you burn in like this, it is going to expose some of that wood down underneath your already conditioned wood. So you want to make sure to also remember to treat that. But now we have markers on our tools, so we'll jump back to the axe here, pretend we just did this. Now when I'm out in the field, I have a very useful item that's even more useful because we just added some extra purpose to it. So I have my measuring device on there and I am going to be good to go. So thanks Horst Kephart for that one. I hope everybody here enjoyed this video. I know, like I said, a lot of my axes I have this done to, and people ask all the time, what are all those marks on the back? Well, that's what it is. So give it a shot if you think that this is a good addition to your kit. Simple one, either in the woods or at home. And then hit like and subscribe before you go do that though. And then also check out Coalcrackerbushcraft.com for all our classes, our gear, and our blog. And until the next video, stay in the woods.